Hello, good morning, Jax. How are you today?
I am doing so good on this wonderful Wednesday. How are you,
It
Wendy?
feels like a Tuesday. We're good.
Yeah, right. Oh, gosh, the days. I don't even know what day of the week is anymore, but we're here on a Wednesday. We're making up for our Tuesday. Life happens, but we did not want to ruin our streak. That yesterday is our normal recording time on Tuesday. For some of you very committed listeners, we love it. We appreciate it. But this is a podcast about life, and life happened yesterday. So I was, well, upset. I'm not like upset, sad, but I wanted to. I was telling you before this podcast that once you start kind of pushing stuff back, and then you get used to it and comfortable to that feeling, and then eventually, I don't want this podcast to fall off the rails. So I'm so happy we're able to meet up today and record episode 8.
Yeah, episode 8, you guys, of putting the feel back in Tuesday. Welcome in, everybody. If you are new to our space, this is Putting the Feel Back in Tuesday. We're a podcast dedicated to inner growth and self-improvement, exploring some sort of spirituality, mindfulness, positivity as best we can. We talk about community and feelings and validating them. That is super important, I think, to validate all range of feelings and offer the safe space to do that, providing maybe some unique perspectives on some of that stuff. To just, embrace our true selves. So we are your hosts. I'm Wendy.
And I am Jackson Sharon Okerlund.
Yay! Episode 8. We are flying through. I love it.
Yeah, 2 months worth of content, you guys. So if you're new to the
Woo.
podcast, catch up on the first 7. And if you're someone who's been following along since episode 1, let's
Yeah.
see what we've got for you guys in the oven for episode 8.
Yeah. I love it. I
So
absolutely love it.
today, a bit of a debrief on how we plan to follow this episode. Wendy's gonna teach us a little lesson on mind mapping. Super interested to hear what's going on there and how we can add that into our toolbox. And
Yeah.
then a little bit less of a teachable moment, but more so something to learn more personal about Wendy and I. We've thought of the idea to choose our 3 favorite books that had the biggest impact on our lives, at least the ones that just came off the top of our mind when you think book that impacts our life. And
Yeah.
we'll tell you guys the book, maybe explain a little bit about what the book's about and why that has such a profound impact on our life today.
Yeah. I am loving it. That was a fun one to think back on. Like sometimes you kind of have them ready, but if you start to think and be like, geez, it's been so long since I read that book. So yeah, that was fun to prep for. I'm really excited about that one.
Awesome.
Love
So
it.
first things first, I know it's Wednesday, but if we can go back 24 hours here, what has put the feel into your Tuesday this week, Wendy?
Well, this week I felt a little motivated, and more prepared for things coming. March is sort of a big month for birthdays, not just my grandma. My 2 main nieces, important people in my life, was Spencer's best friend. Like, I'm like, what is it about March? So, sometimes when there's so many, you're like, ah, and if you want to like make something or what do you want to do and your list is it. So I felt pretty on the ball with that this week. So that's good. And then there's like a corner in one of the rooms downstairs that's been bothering me for a long time. And because I was feeling a little motivated, I was actually able to tidy up that little
Nice.
corner, that little space. So I was feeling good about that. So just, yeah, I think I could sense a little bit of the windows were open a little more this week.
Mm-hmm.
Like it now it's currently just that really light, dumb snow that will happen for an hour and then stop, but it's going to be plus 20 on Saturday. So I think I'm sensing the little shift. And so the motivation comes in with that. So yeah, that's sort of been my feel for the week.
I love it. Your own little March Madness bracket, but with
Yeah.
birthdays.
Yeah, it's a month, that's for sure. And my best friend, like there's so many. I can't even, but the ones that like gotta prep for, you're helping with, or yeah, there's just so many of them. But yeah, so it's been a pretty good week for that. What it's putting the feel back in your Tuesday.
Well, it's kind of funny you said motivated because mine would be kind of the polar opposite, would be a little bit overwhelmed. Um,
Okay.
there's been a lot just compiling on my plate over the last couple of weeks, and there's a lot going on. So it's
Yeah.
been nice. And then I've learned this word the other day actually, where it's called functional freezing,
Oh,
where you're someone who you are a motivated individual and you do a lot of things, and it's almost like a burnout in a way, but
okay.
um sort of similar where you just have so much to do where your
Mm,
brain just gets overwhelmed and it's hard to even chip away at one thing, even if it's a little thing.
yeah.
So, yeah, there's
Yeah.
been so much going on just with my own life for everything I'm working on project wise, and then
Yeah.
life on top of that started compiling. So it did get a little overwhelming. That's why yesterday we didn't film our podcast. It was about 7 in the morning and I'm sound asleep, and I just hear Bale's "Stormy no, Stormy no," and I
Oh,
like look up and look over at her, and there's um feces all over the floor, liquid,
yeah.
and yeah, so we had a sick dog, and we had to clean her up and make sure she was good, clean the room, and
Yeah.
so we ended up, it was early morning dealing with
Mm,
her. And we just wanted to make sure she was feeling good. And yeah, so just one thing after another, and we're out here in Grand Falls, New Brunswick, and we went with Tammy into Fredericton the other day to she wanted to go to Costco and stuff and just stock
oh,
up
gosh.
on life and groceries. So we
Mm,
accompanied her there, and that was a long day when you factor in all the travel time. So there's just been a lot on every angle. And what I need to do is actually apply some of my own advice here. And I have like a million to-do lists, but I should probably rewrite one and really just start breaking things down for myself so it's not as overwhelming. Just be like, okay, this is what I need to do. Let's just do this. But there's
good.
been like that functional freeze I was saying, and yeah, I think now today, things seem to just in the air. You can even feel a bit of settling, so it'll be nice to get back into the swing of things.
Well, that rewriting of your list sounds like a little bit of good timing for the mind mapping.
Yes, yes, perfect. Yeah, it all kind of
It
files
does.
into each other.
Hmm. Yeah, it does sound like a little bit of good timing for that mind mapping. And that's good. It's always that was a good way to put it. You sometimes it's hard to just like find the word, but the feeling of the settling in the air.
Yeah,
Once you sense that, it's not necessarily something you have to hang on to or see, but once you sense that, it does help. Yeah, that's good. Well, I'm glad, that sounds like quite the, week being overwhelmed and that functional freeze, not easy, but I'm glad you're feeling a little bit of settling on the other side.
yes. Well, that's the thing. Not every week our feels can be the most positive and amazing. Sometimes,
Correct.
we're just human beings and life happens, but it's not about shutting down and giving up. It's about using the
Right.
tools we talk about every week, practicing what we preach, and actually moving ahead.
Yep, you bet. Your grandma can't turn 100 every week, right?
Exactly. Exactly. That's once in a lifetime.
Yeah. Yes, that is correct. Well, that's good. Well, I'm glad it's settling off a little bit for you.
And so now we've gotten through our feels. Wendy's got her motivation. I love it. I'm maybe coming back on the rear end of that. And so next we've got the universe. Maybe the universe will have a card perfect for me or a
Yeah.
card perfect for some of our listeners. I wonder what the
Let's
universe has in store for us today.
let's see what we've got. Okay, so
Give us a good one, universe. Give us a
yeah,
good
we're needing a good one.
a good
Okay.
mantra. Like we need like hopefully like a monumental one that will stick with us for the rest of our lives.
All right, here we go then. So this is it's a reflection card today. Now this one's long, but that's okay. So we take a picture of it. We'll try and post it in the Facebook group too. But this one's long, so I know sometimes maybe you write them down or so. Here we go. I'll go a bit slow for you. So because this is a reflection card, reflect on markers of tangible growth in your life. How can you actually see the ways in which you've changed and all that you've done?
One more time, s'il vous plaît.
Reflect on markers of tangible growth in your life. How can you actually see the ways in which you've changed and all that you've done? So
Amazing.
that is the main question of it. And then under it, it's just asking you to take a minute to honor that effort that you've made and your own power to be able to create and transform. So it's sort of asking you to just whatever you think of, reflect on that and appreciate the effort that you put to get to that point.
That one brings me right to back when I worked at the care home. So we had this social worker who's a great friend of mine to this day. Her name is Kinga, and she had
Mhm.
a husband. His name was Chris. And Chris and Kinga are actually both from Poland. Um,
Oh,
they immigrated here in their teens. They're not They're husband and wife now. They both immigrated here to Winnipeg when they were in their teens or late youth, and they ended up both doing Polish dancing, and that's how they kind of met, which was
oh,
you all with your heritage, there's different activities and groups you can join to,
yeah.
stay connected to your country and your culture. And so they ended up meeting there and amazing people. But then Chris, one day, we were all hanging out at Kinga's house and we were just all talking about work. And Chris is just like a man's man. He owns a HVAC company and he's always working in his garage and he's just very honorable man. And we
Yeah.
were all talking about work one day, and he was just like, guys, it doesn't really make me comfortable when you talk about people you work with. And I was like, that made sense. I was like, you know what, you're so right. Because gossip is never a good thing. And I found
Mhm.
myself, joining in on some gossip. And it was the first time where I had seen someone, like a true man, just kind of stand up for his values. He was like, guys, this makes me uncomfortable. I don't really like talking about other people, and I don't want to be a part of this conversation. And I was like,
Nice.
wow, like I totally respect that. I don't even like doing that either, but you kind of have this group mentality where, if everyone's talking about it, you kind of join in to be a part of the group. And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was also a flipping switch moment for me where it's like he stood in his beliefs, stood in his values, and was the guy he was. And so ever
Yeah.
since really that day, it gave me the courage to just truly be who I want to be. And if there's something going on that you don't feel right about, just don't participate or even voice your
Yeah.
values and your reasons. And so from that point on, I noticed a lot of self growth where it was like there's no shame in wanting to be a good person and
Right.
to reenact those values in your everyday life, even if you're the odd one out in the group. And that was just so inspiring for me to just see someone just so content with who he is and proud of his values. And
Yeah.
yeah, he didn't join in. He voiced that to us, and I was like, wow, like what it was just like a super teachable learning moment for me, and that stuck with me ever since.
Yeah. And it brings a little connection with you and that person. And whether or not did you ever express that to him?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Every
did
time
you?
I see him, I always tell him how he's like the kind of the man that I aspire to be. He, he's
Nice.
just everything like he wakes up early, goes to bed so late, everything is he does for his family and just
Mm.
to just build a great life for his loved ones. And I tell him all the time, I said, you are what every man should aspire to be. And I tell him all the time.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. Especially, you 'cause sometimes it's great to tell people that. Sometimes we don't though. But it just it keeps that little invisible thread though between the two of you. If you, let's say you don't get the chance to tell the person, or it was a fleeting passing moment with a stranger, um, and you don't get to say something, it keeps that little invisible thread with them and that tangible moment. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, well, sorry, I was gonna say like it's slipping my mind here, but right, what I read one day was that a man like never gets any kind of compliments throughout their entire life. Like one compliment for a man will almost like stick with them for so many years.
Yes.
And when I read that, I just kind of made it a point like if I see something true from a man or a woman, I love to just give real, genuine compliments, something that might stick with them for a while and something that you almost want to be validated and recognized for, but
Yep.
maybe everyone sees that person and thinks, well, this person's getting their flowers and getting their compliments. They're such an amazing person, but maybe no one
Yep.
actually has. And I
Mhm.
love to just see the good in people and to really uplift them and highlight them for that because so much so much positivity that can be thrown out there that we just don't get.
Exactly. And then, that taking a minute to honor the effort and you acknowledge that, I think, and then just really standing in your own power of like, you have the ability to create and transform yourself, right? And so just taking the minute to remind yourself that you had that moment and it affected you in a certain way, and you implemented change, right? So that's the whole thing on the card. You've done it today.
Oh gosh, absolutely. Yeah, no. That's an amazing one. For anyone listening, I mean, I think all of us can agree we can look back in our past and if we're here on a growth channel, we've probably all come a very, very long way. And it is important to recognize some of those key moments that flip the switch in our head where you acted on something that really changed your life.
Yes, exactly. And even it doesn't necessarily have to be. Sometimes I think um maybe people think that the actual thing that was the flip the switch moment has to be huge and life changing. The actual act doesn't necessarily have to be, but what it can implement, what it can ripple effect once you implement it can be the bigger thing. And that's what's neat,
Right?
is when you like look at all of that. That's what's neat. Yeah.
I almost find like my mind goes to there. You know the saying, like it's the little things in life.
Yes.
It's almost like for growth and motivation, it's like the implementations of a million little things. And the more little things you start to implement, the more growth you start to see. So it all comes down to those little things, those little details, and really just paying attention to everything going on around you and just taking note of those little things.
You bet. You bet. Whatever's gonna like help you out, right? Help guide you through. I mean, there's probably so many of them, and again, their gradients probably changes. There's probably ones from when you were really little, and then in your teen years and your adult years, and so just taking time to reflect on any of the ones you can remember, right? And just, yeah, acknowledging. And then the little saying on the top of the card this week is, "What are years if not measured by trees?"
What are years if not measured by trees? What do you get out of that one, Wendy?
Well, my head straight went right to like, I love driving out in the forest or passing a big wooded area and seeing giant tree next to this tiny one. And you can just tell that one's been planted or a seed has been And and then there's a mix. There's one that's halfway up between the two of them. It's not like there are definitely forests where all of them are just huge, for sure. But I really it goes there. And so you sometimes, like if we're driving to the mountains and stuff or out to this one camping place that we go with our friends, I experience that a lot because then you're staring at the trees that are big and you're like, wow, okay, so they've really been here a long time. They've had like the wind going through them, people wandering through them, animals brushing past them for so long. And then there's this new little one. You're going to have such a fun life. Hopefully a bear doesn't trample you. Like, you know what I mean? That's where my head goes with that is you really can tell the how much time's gone by the size of a tree for sure. I think isn't there that thing you can count how many years old a tree is by the rings?
Yes,
Ooh,
absolutely.
yeah.
No, it is a great, actually a great metaphor to life. Good observation where if you think the trees are human beings, you have people at so many different stages of life at different
Yeah.
times of growth. And the same thing happens in a forest. You got someone who's lived their full true life and they got 1,000 rings of wisdom. And then you got right next to it, in society that just someone starting out and just a big mix. Funny we're talking about trees because we had a huge snowfall yesterday
Oh.
and or maybe it was 2 days ago now, sorry, on Monday. And I was looking at the trees and they were all had snow covered on top of them and they were like frozen solid, like not really covered in ice, but they weren't moving. There might have been no wind or who knows what. But I was really looking at these trees and thinking, I'm like, I've never seen trees this still. They're almost like human beings where with all that snow, they're like frozen in place. And then I'm like, well, once they start to melt and the sun comes out, they're kind of dancing and wisping.
Mhm.
And I was just like, wow, like trees are incredible things. Like the fact that they survive
Yeah.
winter all year round. It's like, yeah, I was just like looking in awe. I'm like, trees are awesome.
That frozen stillness in the trees sometimes I find comes with the hoar frost. That
Mhm.
is my favorite to photograph when there's that not just snow but the frost, like the yeah. And I mean that measured by trees as well. I don't know if they do it out there or in Manitoba, but in every grade one, maybe it's kindergarten. I think it's grade one student gets sent home with this tiny pine tree to
What?
do as you want with it. It's planted in our front yard because I was like, well, I don't know what to where we rent, right? And where I'm not going to dig up the lawn to plant a tree, but there was a hole there that I think the previous owners had like a tomato plant thingy in it. So it's a big enough hole. I'm like, okay, sure. There's that green space across the street. We could, just random trees growing. But I'm like, I want to be able to see it. And then you also like when we move, it doesn't come with us. But it's like watching that every year, how big it gets, right? And now we like me and my neighbor decorated at Christmas time because it's strong enough to hold some decorations. So even that, right? Like measured by years watching that. And then we also have there's different parks in the city and they plant a tree for every baby born. And so you go to the park for that year. So Spencer's year is quite close. And so that's fun to see. You walk through this forest and all the trees are the same size and it's every baby born in Calgary that year.
Really?
That's
This
that
is
was registered. Yeah.
That should be more talked about by Albertans. I've never heard of this. Definitely not a
Oh,
Manitoba thing and definitely not an East Coast thing.
I'll have to go live one day and do a walk there. I geocached there once on a live, and I mean we try and map out where it is. We did tie like a plastic motorcycle to it when the tree was tiny, tiny, tiny. But yeah, it's really neat because then if you've got more than one kid, you go to different ones, right? Because each year is put somewhere else. Yeah,
So cool. That
yeah,
that's so cool. Next time I'm in Calgary, we'll have to go for a visit.
absolutely.
But just to kind of reel that in the tree talk, they
Yeah,
say the best time to plant the tree was yesterday, and the next best time is today.
there
And
you go.
that's kind of what we did with this podcast.
That's right. That's right. Love it. All right, so we'll put a picture up of that card because I know it was a long one.
Yeah.
We will post that up there. Well, that was a good one. We did good. Love it. So are we all ready for mind mapping?
Yeah, Wendy, I'm super excited to hear what you have to say about mind mapping. I've got my pen and paper. I'm gonna be more so maybe asking questions and learning alongside everyone else here.
Yeah.
Mind mapping, might have done it once or twice in college, but I'm ready to
Yeah.
learn something new and see how this goes.
Well, it sort of falls along the same lines as brainstorming kind of deal. Um, and it just sort of helps categorize sometimes when there's a lot in our mind, whether it's you got some emotions to sort out or your goals. It sort of came to mind off the end of the podcast about goals. So that's why I sort of thought of it. So whether you just need to like map it out, because sometimes there's all these little things. So the concept of it is writing down a central theme kind of in the middle-ish and thinking of related ideas or topics that go with it and then just radiating off of all of those because you can branch off into lots of trees, but it's just a tool to help centralize all of that for people. um, it's in one piece of paper. All the huge thoughts that you might have going. We'll do a simple one to sort of guide people through, but as you get used to doing it, yeah, if you want to have a bunch of branches off those little branches, it does just help because everything's right in front of you. And you can, do different ideas with it, like certain color code it, make it fun. Some people use like clippings from magazine, like whatever you want to do,
Mm,
make it fun. But it just sort of helps organize and centralize sort of your thoughts, your thinking. So I did one, and we can sort of take a picture maybe and put that on there too. But I thought I would just like walk people through one about goals, like sort of make it an easy one. But yeah, you can do this off of I'll go back to that. I don't want to hang on. I'll back to that one at the end. Might make more sense after I've explained it. So,
you're doing a great
um,
job explaining it.
yeah. So I just put goals sort of in the middle of the lower part of the paper in a bubble. Just that's what we're talking about. Here's our main theme:
Okay.
goals. And so just for the sake of the example, everybody can do what they want. Um, I was like, okay, let's say people have work goals and personal goals. So off the goals bubble, one way, you're going to go work. So you're
Mm,
going to draw the line from the goal bubble and you're going to write work. You know what I mean? And then you're going to go in opposite direction. Like it's going to be backwards, but like it's going to be
right.
backwards and we'll put it on the Facebook group. But so one way you go work, then you draw a line another way and you go to personal. So if you can think of, we'll start with the personal one. If you can think of a personal goal, so you've got the word personal and you circle that or whatever you want to do. So then you draw a line off the word personal and write the first personal goal you can think of.
Okay, so for
Um,
me, I would put personal goal for 2026, run across the USA.
Done. Okay. So you write run across the USA and you circle that because you've drawn a line from goals to personal. Then you drew a little line off personal and you wrote,
Yep,
we're running across the US. Now you're circling it.
perfect.
So there's um so now there's things to do from that. There's lots to do,
Mm,
right? So in my example, for some people, I put learn to drive. That's a personal goal. Well, you
great.
can't just learn to drive. So now you've got to circle that. So what you're circling are the ideas. That's what you're circling is the main thing. The stuff you're drawing little lines and branching off is what you need to do to help that circle.
I love
So
this.
in my example of the learn to drive, there's a little line and I've got get the manual, right? That's one thing we do. We all got to read that little manual, right? So, like, I don't know if I'll be able to show it as much. Again, we'll put it on there, but where is it? My
I'll
headphones are on.
you
The
send
learn
that
to
to me,
drive.
Wendy, and I'll edit it onto the screen. So when
Yeah.
you talk
Okay,
about this,
perfect. So the learn to drive is circled because that's your thing. And then the line off of it is get the manual. There's another line off of it. Find someone to take me out to practice driving. Now I circled that one because you can't just get someone to help you off of finding someone to help me drive is um, how often you want to practice. So you're circling the ones that need more action items. You know what I mean?
hmm
So even though we learned to drive is circled, and then the line off of it was find someone to help drive me around. Um, that's an action item. So the driving around itself, how often do you want to practice? So line off of that one, practice at least 3 times a week. So you're running across the US is circled. What are the action items that you need to
so
do?
many. Obviously, train my body.
There you go.
Acquire some kind of new living vehicle. And
Yep.
that's a whole other box where it's like acquire a motorhome, but then how the hell do you acquire a motorhome? And then you've got to branch it off. This is amazing, and I love the fact that you immediately broke it off work and personal, because those
Yeah.
are the two biggest things in our life. And if you can
Yeah.
actually break that up into two separate things, I honestly, right there, then and there, I was like, wow, I could take so much more control of my life if I just broke it up between work and personal goals.
And even so off you're running across the US train. Well, even that is a big one. Like what literally. So now you got a line off of train. How do you want to train? The running. Then you got another line. Are you working on muscle? And those two on their own. Now you're gonna have to circle perhaps the running because how often do you want to train your running? And then the muscle, what do you need to do that? Get a membership at a gym, buy a home gym thing, lift your dog 4 times a day. Like what do you literally circle the things with the action items. And so it can end up being quite this whew, picture, but it really does help. And if you color code and if you circle just the action items and then the specific lines as you get used to doing it, when you just take a first glance at it as you start doing one, you're like, oh, it just sort of helps with. So off the work one, one of the examples that I had, so I circled work and then I drew a line and I put advancing. So, and then I circled that. And so, how do you advance at work? Well, a little line off of that one is training. Another line, learn new skills. Another line, apply to higher positions. Like, how are you going to advance at work? And then the learning new skills I circled because we can't just wake up with new skills. So, how do you get new skills? And off of that one, I put a line that said courses, another line that said read books on the topic. So, as you get to do it, you'll know what to circle and what might need more action items. But it really is when you stand back and look at the little like web you've made.
Gosh, you
It
just explained that so perfectly. I feel like with just everything you've just told us and explained, and with your example,
yeah,
and I've been kind of following along and writing one out. Yeah, this is so fun and good because
yeah,
what people talk about with manifestation is that's just in your mind. But then the first step to making something real, honestly, is getting it out onto a piece of paper. And that's even just that's literally taking such a huge first step from putting something from your imagination into reality. Even if it's written on a piece of paper, at least it's there, it's real, it exists. And you'd be surprised how fast a lot will
yeah,
start coming to you once you start putting that out into the universe, like
yeah.
what you truly want. And yeah, this mind map is so good for
And
that.
I always tell people with the manifestation, one of the things that I think is super important is down to the detail. Like literally, you may feel silly, but if you're manifesting a dream house or something, just as an example, right? If you want it to have a black picket fence, you're writing that down. If you want it to have fake grass so you never have to cut it, you write it down. Like down to the detail, what's important to put out there is really what's needed. So, same thing here, all those things. And so, just the one thing I wanted to go back on a reference, maybe like once you get some practice, hope it's not too much of a mind blowing, but you can even do that emotionally. So let's say you wake up feeling frustrated. Well, so the first thing on your paper is frustrated. What's the next line off of that? Why are you frustrated? You know, whatever. Your husband didn't empty the dishwasher, if that's what it is. And then, well, why does that frustrate you? So now you've written frustrated and a line to dishwasher, but why is it frustrating you? So the line that's between the two, you're drawing a line off that one because you're breaking down the frustration. And you can really break it down to like the fact that, I don't know, McDonald's didn't give you your order right 4 days ago. Like you really can. If you get it used to it, you so you can do it for goals, emotions, just anything. Mind map, get it out. Even though it's confusing, don't be afraid to keep branching because you can rewrite it. Like giver.
What an amazing tool. I'm definitely gonna take this and run with it. And yeah, because the fact that like you have to think and keep going a little deeper and a little deeper,
Yeah.
that is truly how you accomplish your goals. You grab the general biggest idea and you break it down into such small, tangible, achievable things. And
Yeah.
then you slowly start, checking all those things off your list. And then you end up back at your big bubble and you're like, wait, how did I get here? Like, as you put in all that work, all those little tiny
Yep.
bubbles written out. Um,
Yeah.
Once you can check them all off your list and you get back to your big bubble, you'll be like, wow, I'm actually ready. I'm here. I'm at the big bubble I've been working
Yeah.
towards.
And even with the emotion one, it really does like break it down and you can end up being like, oh, you know, yeah, without an example, maybe that's hard to sort of, but once you break it down again, it's the same effect when you stand back and look at it. It's quite easy because you're circling the big ones, you know what I mean? If you color code it or whatever, when you stand back and look at it, it just sort of simplifies it a little bit to help you sort through. Yeah.
Amazing. So, like with your dream house one with the black picket fence and the turf grass,
Yeah.
um, and then yeah, there's so many ways you can go about that. Well, so then you can put another line. It's $400,000, okay?
Yep.
And then you put another line out from there. Where am I going to get $400,000? So maybe
Yes.
if we sell our current home, that's 300,000, and then so how
Yep.
do we make the other 100,000? You might map out from there. Like to make $100,000, we need to budget like this for 4 more years, and then
Yep.
what am I gonna do through those 4 years? And then you just keep going and going and going, and
Yep.
to the point where it's like, wow, I actually have a plan written out here on this map of how to reach that
Yep.
black picket fence.
And it can change, and if it needs to, whatever, you just do another mind map, like, or you cross off and yeah. And sometimes it can give you more simple things to do or make you realize, with the goals, but like with the emotion one, for example, sometimes we just don't, like with the husband not emptying the dishwasher. If it's like, well, I'm always doing it, or that's one of the branches or whatever, and well, why am I always the one doing it? Well, have you mentioned lately that you kind of need help or you haven't emptied the dishwasher in a while? Well, that stops your map pretty quick. Oh, okay. I think I just need to chat with my husband. Maybe I'll feel less frustrated tomorrow. Like, you know what I mean? So sometimes it's simple, sometimes it's big. Just play. That's what's the funnest. Play. Get a few different colored pens out. You don't have to color code. It just sort of helps. Once you get your own system going, you got it.
Just a little side thought. If it is your partner that you're frustrated with and they're not doing the dishes or whatever it is, just came to my mind where a lot of us might approach the situation like, listen, I'll just use Bailey as an example. Listen, Bailey, you're not doing the dishes. That one might not elicit the response you want. But if you
Right.
say something like, I feel like I need help, I'm getting overrun with house chores, could you help me? Um,
Hmm.
those I statements, I know I've been lots of talk about that lately, just
Yeah.
in my general life. I statements. I don't know how many of you are familiar with I statements, but it's basically instead of saying you, like you did this, it's
Yeah.
I was hurt or I feel taken advantage of, or you say I first, and then they have to. kind of breaks it up where they actually have to consider the way you feel rather than just putting it all on them.
Yes, and another I think important thing in that too with an I statement is uh instead of using but when you're like, yes, but you go, yes, and
Mm.
yes, and I'm saying like, yeah. But yeah. So and even that, you can even mind map how the you want what you should use in language in the conversation. What parts are important to you to make sure you relate in that conversation. So yeah, it's super fun. I hope everybody plays.
Yeah, please, if you guys are gonna do the mind map, let us know because truthfully, you guys, like maybe we should be preaching this more, but we should all have goals in our life. Goals are what really give us a sense of purpose, something to wake up for, something to live towards.
Yeah.
Like we all need a goal, whether it's big or small. Like it could be run across the USA or it could literally be finger knit a blanket. Both
Yep.
both are good goals. Whatever your goal is, as long as you have goals, it gives you purpose. It's so sad when you just wake up, go to work, come home, like the survival we were talking about. That's not living. And
No.
so, if any of you have made it to this point in the podcast, please like tell us what your goals are as well. Like any goal, big or small. Um, it's just so important. And I almost felt like I just needed to preach that here quick because
Yeah. You bet.
even if I would rather see someone with a goal list 20 goals long than a goal list with zero on it
Yeah.
because it just gives you something to wake up for, fight for, live towards. Like, yeah. And I almost feel like sometimes a lot of us don't have a goal in life. We're just happy to be here, happy to survive, happy to exist. But there's more. There's more.
And when you write those goal lists and mind map, I think what's important is not to overthink it because it's totally fine if your goal list has huge things and little things. It doesn't matter because you might wake up on Tuesday and feel like you can do one of the big ones. And Wednesday you wake up and be like, where's the tiny one? Who cares? Write out your list. Don't be like, oh, those seem too big. When we're doing these things, mind mapping, list writing, don't overthink. That I think is the worst enemy, overthinking. That's what erasers and whiteout are for. Just whatever. Write it down.
Yes, that you can fix pages, but you can't fix empty pages.
That's
So
right.
just write it all down, get it out there, and just even if it's a tiny, tiny, tiny goal, like that's fine too. But just find a goal,
Yeah.
mind map towards like how you're gonna reach it. Let's say finger knitting a blanket.
Yeah.
Okay, so finger knitting a blanket. Go out from there. Well, I need to get yarn, okay, and then go out from there as well. And I need to learn to finger knit. And
Yep.
then you can just start reaching no matter what your goal is. But just so important to have goals and to have stuff that makes you happy. Like
Yeah.
for a quick example here, if you just thought, well, what would make me happy? And if that's well, some people will be like, well, I just want a new house, but
Mm.
whatever it might be, the littlest, tiniest thing, we just need to start setting goals for ourselves because so important to, yeah, I can't preach it enough to work towards something more than just your
Yeah.
career life. There needs to be more outside of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You want to have, that's the thing. Your main idea on that mind map, you want to have lots of little lines off of it and then things on top of each of those lines and just break it down for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome. I love it.
right. We're all different guys, so our mind maps are all gonna look there. I guarantee literally in 11,
Mm,
12 billion people, if everyone did a mind map, I don't think there would be one single mind map that looked alike. Everyone's would be
exactly.
so unique. So
Yep.
just,
And there's some pretty fun ones out there for sure. Yeah. Yeah. You bet.
embrace that uniqueness, embrace your hobbies, embrace what you love, and go out there and do it. Because
Yeah,
it's not much time in our, well,
that's right. That's what keeps us going. Love it.
awesome. Well, no, I definitely learned something new and I can't wait to work on my mind map later. So fun.
Awesome. Yeah.
And for some of us, where I say like spaghetti brain,
Mhm.
this is like a spaghetti brain on paper. I love it. You can really
Yeah.
just get it all out.
Yeah, so I'll take a picture of it and we'll post it. It's a little messy. You should have seen how long it took me. I was trying to fancily draw a person. I'm not gonna lie, guys. In the end, it's a stick man, but that's
So, is it going to be on your
where
mind?
I'm at.
What's one of your goals, Wendy?
Oh, well, that was my example page. That was my example page. Um, well, so one of the goals is just getting out more a little bit, making sure that once it's nicer, I'm like out there walking a little bit more. Um, and finding different ways to be more active in the winter. Um,
Hmm.
I had a treadmill and it died. So that's fine. But it can be hard here with lots of ice and stuff like that. So usually I feel that motivation stir a little bit when it gets a bit nicer out. So definitely to be out moving just a little bit more. And as far as inside the house, just from what I can think of, more corners, just like that one I attacked, this week. There's more. Just, downsize a little bit more and just, as we change and grow, do we still need this? Are we still using this? So, those are two things uh for sure that I can think of off the top of my head. An outside and an inside.
No, I love that. Those are such good goals, very achievable,
Yeah,
and you can start working on them at any time. I love it. Now we just got to stick to our plan. Next week, Wendy, I want to hear that you've cleaned up another corner.
good. Okay, homework. Love it.
Yeah, I'll give you a break because who the heck wants to go outside when it's windy and cold and mucky? Like,
Yeah. Well, you know what? It is like I said, it's a random snow for an hour, but then like 12 tomorrow, like 17 Friday, 19 Sunday, like it at the weekend I should be able to and like prep, to start to plant things, get outside and let the yard. I mean, that's Pax's favorite time too, because I'm the person that takes her cat
oh
out on a harness and leash. She
no.
loves it. We spend hours out there. She loves it. She just lays outside, and so then you're puttering around and raking the grass, and yeah, so it's time to get doing some moving outside. Yeah.
It's amazing when you see like anywhere, I'm sure any city, but once you get that spring seasonal shift and you
Yeah.
maybe go for a walk yourself or you go for a drive and you're like, did all these people live in my neighborhood before? Like, where
Yeah.
were they all winter?
Yeah, we were all huddled in our basements under blankets. Yeah, trying to stay warm. Yeah.
Literally though, like it's it's a common thing where we all just survive winter. Like we said, we survive. We don't live in winter, we just survive. And then you like the first time the snow melts and the sun's out, you go outside and there's like a sea of people. You're like, where did you all come from?
Yeah. The birds. Yeah. Love it. Love it.
Awesome. So mind mapping, so fun, so good. I hope yeah, I can't wait to see your example, and we'll post that to our Facebook, and I'll try and edit that one in right at the start of our talk
Okay.
for people who are listening, wanted to reference it. It'll be there in the episode.
I
Uh,
suppose I could have put my actual goals on there. I just like thought of random ones.
oh, that's good.
But yeah, good. Just to sort of also make one simple and one complicated to sort of show how you really can keep branching. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good to have a general one because we're all gonna have such different goals.
Yeah.
That's why you got to kind of talk pretty generally because my goals are going to look way different to your goals, which are going to look
Yeah.
way different to Sheila's goals, or way different to
Yeah.
Melissa's goals, and way different to my mother's goals. So,
Yeah. You bet. Right. Yeah.
and if you're a listener, I tried using some of our dedicated listeners' names. Shout out to you guys.
There you go. Love it.
Awesome. So then now we've got the next part of our podcast today, something a little different. I thought we just kind of just came to me one night. The idea of I asked Wendy to pick a couple, 2 to 3 books that really shaped her outlook on life, maybe her mindset, just the way she views life. Um, could have been something as silly as maybe a Dr. Seuss book, a Harry Potter, whatever book she read that really stuck with her and that like value she's now taken with her to this very day that she might have got from an insert in a book or a chapter or even the whole story itself. So maybe Wendy, what we could do is I'll ask you for your first book, tell us the name, what it's about, and why it's impacted you so much. And we
Okay.
can just kind of go back and forth, and I'll do mine, then I'll get your second one, and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Well, I mean, if anybody knows me, it's been discussed before. Tuesdays with Maury. Uh, top one. Tuesdays with Maury. I picked that one. I mean, maybe don't remember too many from being younger, but I was maybe 19-ish when I read that book. And so the period you find these books that impact you also, I think, make a difference. So I was like 19, and it was one of those ones where you pick it up and you're like, I I worked at Mohawk at the time, and there's a lot of downtime, and there's a magazine rack with books, right? Well, you've touched every magazine, right? Well, what are these books? Well, that's where I found Tuesdays with Maury. And now you're on page 20 and a customer's coming in for smokes, and you're like, damn it. You what? I just want to finish the and I had a really good friend I worked with, and he had a job a few stores down in this plaza. And when it was break time, I'd run over there to visit him and read him parts of it because it was so the stuff that was in it was so amazing that I was like, I need to tell somebody else about this now, like now. Maybe the guy who came in for smokes. Hey, while you're here, I just literally grabbed this book off the but so it's called Tuesdays with Maury. It's written by Mitch Albom, and it is about this man and his professor. I had a professor when he was in university, and it touches base a little bit on their closeness. And then, of course, you graduate. Let's keep in touch. You don't. Mitch Albom is a real person. This author, he's a sports writer, and so his life gets insanely busy, and they don't keep in touch. And one night, he sees Maury being interviewed by Ted Koppel about how he's been diagnosed with ALS and he's dying. And he's like, oh my God, like, that's my professor. What the heck? And so he goes to visit him, and slowly they decide to meet once a week and just talk about life. And, Maury's view was, I'm kind of dying and have the ability to narrate the experience.
Wow.
What if we shared it and talked about a bunch of stuff, and you wrote it down or you recorded it, and whatever comes out of it. And so yeah, they talk about, each Tuesday is a different idea. So, death, aging, fear, family, society, forgiveness, the meaning of life. It's amazing. And then of course, a goodbye. But it impacted me at that age because it sort of opened my eyes to thinking of things uncomfortably, because not a lot of people want to talk or think about death or fear or, family, if there's issues with family, or society and how it's wild and what's happening. So it sort of opened the eyes to thinking of things uncomfortably, and well, maybe we don't need to shy away from. I was definitely guilty of doing that, but it was like, oh, look at someone's talking about this uncomfortable topic in a beautiful way. Oh, so it
Right.
just sort of opened my eyes to that. And just, Maury talked a lot about how a lot of us sleepwalk. That was a bit of our survival chat the other day. And we're not really fully living life and experiencing life. But the stuff we shy away from, like the topic of death, his big thing of once you know how to die, you will learn how to live.
Mm,
That was oof, like that was a,
amazing.
a big one. And he was, one of my favorite parts. I decided to pick a few favorite parts. Is he's like, the Buddhists every day, they it's like they pretend they have a little bird on their shoulder, and they ask the little bird, is today the day? am I ready? If today is the day, have I put in everything I need to? And have I am I working towards being the person I want to be? So just all of those things in that book at the age of 19-ish
Hmm.
was like, wow, like, and that one, I'm like, I have to keep this. I have to keep this. There was a made for TV movie done. I've seen the play at Stage West. The guy who played Klinger on MASH played Maury, and whoo, I gifted it to my oldest niece because she was born on a Tuesday. And I read it to her as a baby. I'd go visit her once a week and read her this book, even though I knew she didn't
Wow.
understand it. I have pictures of her chewing on it. So cute. It was just a very, very powerful one for me at that age. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow, that was such a good listen. Thanks for sharing all of that. No, I
Yeah.
love that. And it even impacted you so much that we have a podcast today where it's literally when we were discussing this podcast, you were like, I pull so much inspiration from Tuesdays with Maury. And it just so happened, like, I was like, well, why don't we meet up on a Tuesday and just talk
Yeah.
about life? And we kind of have our own version of Tuesdays with Maury, but ours is putting the feel
Yeah.
back in Tuesday.
Yeah. Talking about the feels and what we can do. So yeah, that's a good one. Highly recommended for anybody to, whether just even the library, just, whichever. So that's my first one. What's yours? I'm
Amazing.
excited.
Before we jump into my first one,
Yeah.
did you recommend that to AD recently?
I didn't.
Okay.
I think a different friend of hers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had seen AD posting about how she was in love in this book right now. Could have been her, could have been someone else, but yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, I could have picked any of his other books. I mean, uh, yeah, The Five People You Meet in Heaven is another one, but they all couldn't have been Mitch Albom books. But yeah, yep, that one's the for sure number one go to.
amazing. Okay. So I guess we'll get into my first book now.
All
This
right.
one I read around the same age, 1920. It's called Barbarian Days, Barbarian Days, A Surfing Life by William Finnegan. And
Oh, okay.
I read this book. It's about this, it's an autobiography or a biography, however you say it. It's one man who's later in his life now. He might have been in his 70s when he wrote it, and it's a recount of his entire life. But
Mm,
basically, William was born in California. He grew up, he had a buddy who taught him how to surf, and they'd always take him to the beach and they'd go surfing together. And
mhm.
then as he grew up a little more, his dad, who was a TV director, moved them out to Hawaii so he could get some more work out there. And he ended
Okay.
up, growing up as a white guy in Hawaii back then. There was a lot of racism to white people because they call them Haoles or
Okay.
along the lines, like basically the white people coming into their land and trying to take it all from them, from the native people, and making everything more expensive. But and
Okay.
this had nothing to do with the story, but he went there and he kept surfing and making friends out there and ended up getting a girlfriend. But then he gets a little older to the point where he needs to decide to go away for college or
Mhm.
continue living his dreams. So he stayed on Hawaii. He met this girl and he was working at this library part time. The whole thing is around William loves to surf. And so instead of going to college, he chooses to stay in Hawaii because around winter time, there's this huge swell in Hawaii called the Bonsai Pipeline. It's the most famous wave in the world. Everyone wants to ride it. It's vicious. It'll kill you, but
Okay.
they like that hundreds of people ride it every year and they wait for the biggest time of the year when the like winter storms come and it's rattling the ocean and these huge barreling waves come in. You can get like 8-10 second tube rides. And so he decides to work at this library or bookstore part-time. He's making like $200 a month, but he ends up like renting out this super crappy shack and then he meets this girl. And so they're living in the shack and he's dedicating his entire life to surfing. He just loves it so much. And so he continues doing this like every winter. He's obsessed with Hawaii and all the waves. he gets a little older, and his group of friends that started surfing, maybe they didn't find it as sustainable of a lifestyle to just kind of live in a shack and surf all day. So
Okay, okay.
people from the group start filing out, and he's kind of one of the last surfers left. And then eventually his girlfriend ends up leaving him because all he wants to do is surf and pay no attention to her. So he's still
Mm,
growing up, he's still surfing, and then he ends up basically starting to travel the world where he goes to South Africa with not much money in his pocket. And he's just basically finds ways to keep making it by and chasing the wave wherever it
okay.
might be. So he's got like $200 in his pocket and he just makes it work until he's out of money. And then he finds a way in these foreign countries because it's back in like the 50s or 60s when it was probably you didn't need working visas. You kind of
Yeah.
gift of the gab got you a lot further in life, like where you could just talk to people, make deals under the table. So he ends up going all around the world surfing with just like 50 bucks in his pocket, and he'll go literally wait tables at this restaurant in South Australia just enough to get a boat ticket to go to this place. And he's just always just making it work to chase his dream, which is surfing. And he ends up getting into his 30s and he goes back to university finally, and he gets writing. He goes into writing and he starts following
Mm,
wars and writing about these wars. But
oh,
a lot of these places he could keep surfing in them. So he kept following his dream. He found a way to get a job that helped him travel and keep living his dream. And so that's the premise of the whole book, where he's just really just has the thing he loves to do in his life, and he made it work at all costs. But he explains how he gave up love and career and all this just to do what he loved. And
wow.
in the end, it ended up all working out for him because this book is a New York Times bestseller now. And, he definitely is a great, great writer. But what inspired me so much about that book is I almost felt a parallel to him where I'm just trying to chase my dreams at all costs, where there's not
Hmm.
much stability in my life. And it's always good to see someone else who did the same thing, where they're like, I would rather live my dream with no security whatsoever because I know this is the peak of my life. Like, I'm never going to have a time where I'm this happy no matter what. And that's basically one of the books that inspired me the most. This guy who,
Hmm.
and you learn a lot from it because he threw away a lot of relationship and um,
Mm,
things that I care deeply about, which hopefully I don't want to
mm,
lose. But you just never know. In his book, he's talking about his first girlfriend like it's the girl he's gonna marry, and he never expects he's gonna break up
mm,
with her. So it's just such an interesting tale of some guy's life, and yeah, it just goes to show you that you can live a more unique, just go with the flow, keep surviving kind of life if you
yeah.
are going truly for your goals and your dreams. And so I just took so much inspiration from that, especially I had Rob read it too, like my best friend
Oh,
Rob. And so when he came out on the Cross Canada Marathon with me, we kept saying like this is our barbarian days because we were young, we were living the dream, we are living out of this van on the side of the road and
yeah.
not much in our pockets, just a dream and a goal. And yeah, it was just so cool. I mean, that happened for me. It worked out. And I don't know if I would have read that book if um I would have had as much of a belief that you can just have a goal and just
Yeah.
make it work at all costs. Like the fact that he was willing to be stranded in Southern Africa for 2 months with no money in his pocket. To most people, that would be like, what? How am I gonna get out of
Yeah.
Africa? But he's just like, whatever, I got the waves, I'll make it work. And if I die on this beach trying to catch waves, then I died living my dream. And super inspiring
Yeah.
tale.
What, yeah, like what an age to read that at too, right? Like if you read that when you were 40 or 50, it might have been different. How old was he when he wrote the book?
Probably in his late 50s, early 60s.
So did he ever, out of my own curiosity, or unless I have to read it, did he ever marry? Or
He ended up marrying
okay,
later in life.
okay.
Um,
Huh.
yeah, he ended up marrying. He moved to San Francisco and yeah, became more so he ended up getting out of surfing one day and more so into
Okay.
his writing career and his wife and this and that. But
Yeah.
it was just he was someone who delayed a lot of life, like career, family.
Mm,
I don't think he even have ever had a kid. So he delayed so much of his life to just do what he loved.
yeah.
And I'm definitely not some kind of guy who could be like, I'm just gonna stay single till 40 because I just want to pursue
Yeah.
me. But it definitely gave me so much perspective and insight on just different journeys and life paths you can take.
Yeah. And maybe there isn't a lot of people that might not be a common story, but those sometimes are the ones you get attracted to, or like to delay so much of that and to have love and things like that and put them off, whoever was in charge of the breakup, to do what you love. That's a big fire and passion. I'm not sure I could say I've had that much fire and passion for something. So yeah, that sounds like a very good one. That'd be a very good one to read. Love
Yeah,
it.
it was such a good read that it even inspired my best friend Rob. Basically, that if he wouldn't have read that book, he would have never quit his job and left his girlfriend behind for 99 days to follow me in a 1985 Volkswagen on the side of the highway for 5,000 kilometers. Like, if he never
Yeah,
read that book, he would have never been inspired to do that. So, it inspired us both greatly.
I love that.
Awesome. So that was my first one that kind of shaped me into this unique, like, don't need much, but I'm doing what I love, and so I'm happy.
That's awesome.
And so,
Awesome.
Wendy, what is your next book?
So I don't know if this is on your list or not, but The Alchemist.
Actually, it did not make my list.
Yeah, when I first found you, uh I think some people, it was day 10, so a lot of people were asking the same type of questions in the chat. And some of the mods were like, go watch his setup videos and blah. I'm like, oh yeah, I really should do that. And so I went, and in one of them, you talked about The Alchemist and said you were taking it with you. And it took a long time, I remember, because there's so many people in the chat. I had read the book and I was like, oh my God, he's walking with this book. Did he actually take it? I think it took me a couple weeks of asking you, like it kept getting missed in the chat or whatever,
Oh
if you
no.
actually had it in your bag. And if it wasn't the 100-kilometer day and you weren't so busy, like I genuinely would have been like, I need to see this book out of your backpack. I was so excited you took that with you. I really, really loved The Alchemist. That one I read in my 40s, found it at the library, just looking for whatever. Um, but it helped just add on to the thoughts of the spiritual journey I sort of was already on. Um, it just sort of added ideas and things like that to it, and it does touch on some pretty uh big topics that I like to either practice or learn a little bit more on. And just how the universe has your back if you're pursuing your purpose, right? If you're putting yourself out there. So there was a lot to it, but the spiritual aspect of it really sort of stuck with me. Uh yeah, just if you the concepts of like synchronicity, I love synchronicity. Um, the little timings, the deeper meanings behind, it's sort of like coincidences, but there's a deeper meaning to it. It's not
Mm.
just the coincidences. So I sort of love that, and like the intuition that it sort of talked about, and resilience, and yeah, there was a lot of topics in that one that sort of stuck with me, that I enjoyed. Sometimes when you're on a roll with something and you read something where someone else is on that same boat or just believes, right? It's super interesting, and I just think it was really well done. Like I was like, wow. And even like the law of correspondence, and yeah, there was a lot in there that
And one thing that really sticks out to me with that book is the universal human language, the unspoken language, where we're all just like we're all human beings and we all communicated before there was language, so that's still built into us to this day.
yes,
And such an
yeah,
cool book. That would have made my list probably. It's probably number four. That one I read when I was 24 and I was in Australia. It was just the reason I brought that one with me was because at the time I had an ex-girlfriend who I left behind to go to Australia and to do my training and to just explore and to
yeah,
continue following my dreams. And she had read that book and she's like, "Wow, this book reminds me so much of you. You really need to read this book. It's just kind of
okay,
exemplifies you." And so I read the book, and it is kind of like Barbarian Days, but in a more fictional way, where it's just some
yeah,
guy who's following his true passion. And as long as he just trusts in the fact that he's following his true passion, everything's going to work itself out in the end. And
yeah,
it all does.
oh,
It's such an amazing book. And the coolest thing about that is I took the book with me all across Canada, but it was just such a like that book was happening to me in real life. This one lady showed up on the side of the road and handed me two stones. And I was like, this is literally like the omens part of the book where he gets that, I think it's like a gold and a silver stone. And
lead,
yeah,
yeah, the lead and the gold, yeah,
yeah. And it was just like unbelievable
oh,
to me. I was like, I'm going on this big walk like he did in The Alchemist.
yeah,
And super, super amazing read on just following your destiny and trusting in the process.
yes, and all those little things, like I said, the learning about. I mean, I already knew about it, but the synchronicity and just the one like the law of correspondence, the your current reality is a bit of a mirror of what's going on inside. That was like a, oh wow, like you sort of sometimes you're aware of a concept but not really, and so when it's put out in front of you like that, yeah, I really sort of enjoyed that. And then the one quote I wrote down from it that I super loved out of that one is, so I love you because the entire universe conspired to help me find you.
Love that.
Because that can be anybody, a stranger we meet that turns into a friend, just anything, everything. It really is. Even if you fall in love with a plant and it's your favorite thing, when you think about it, yeah, the whole universe had to come together for you and that plant to come face to face at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, that amazing pick, Wendy. And anyone who has never read The Alchemist, it's probably like what, like a 6 hour read, four to eight
Yeah.
hour read. It's very pretty good short read. It's such a good travel book. Like take it on a plane or a road trip.
Yeah.
Such a good book. Anyone, if any of these books, that's a good one where you could pick it up, read it in a weekend, and you'll be so
Yeah.
inspired.
That one I don't own. I got it from the library, but yeah, yeah, that was
I'll
a good
have
one.
to gift you my copy one day, Wendy, in your
No, no.
bookshelf.
Well,
Awesome.
so that was my number two. What's yours? Number two.
So my number two is the book. It's called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Malcolm Gladwell?
No.
He's done a couple pretty good ones. He's got another one called The Tipping Point, and he might have also he's got a couple like really good bestsellers, but Outliers is another one of his where he basically it's kind of like the Robert Greene book Mastery, but how Outliers works is he takes a bunch of these people who are the best in their craft and he interviews them and basically breaks down their entire life to understand why they are who they are, like why they're so good at what they do. And
Okay.
basically the reason behind Outliers is it's not there's a stroke of chance involved with their upbringing. Like, so let's just use Picasso, for example, and why he's
Yeah.
like such a outlier when it comes to painting. He went back and like basically reviewed their whole lives, and all of these people had the circumstances growing up, but it wasn't like they might have had that stuff around and the right mentors. It was just like everything on the universe conspired for them to be able to become the best of what they did, but then they actually did it and put in the effort every day. So they found the
Yes.
mentors, they put in the practice, and it just brings you into a deeper dive of so many of these amazing people's lives and
Hmm.
how they got to where they got to be like the outlier of their domain. And to me, it was super motivational just when I was
Oh,
trying to run across Canada. And, there's not many people who have done it. I was number 16 at the time. And
right.
so I was trying to just understand these people who have taken on these monumental challenges and became
Yeah.
outliers because there's a science behind it. And like anyone can be anything they want to be. We're all just human beings at the end of the day. I'm
That's
sure that
right.
some circumstances that create like just the universe conspired early on, like for a dirt biker, if you're a kid and you're 2 years old, you're already on a dirt bike, and then one day that person's the best dirt biker in the world, and let's say they did an
Mhm.
outlier debrief on him, they would go back and see, well, you grew
Yeah.
up in this place with all these hills that you could practice and
Mm.
whatnot, but obviously they end up putting in all the work and that kind of stuff. But it's just cool to see and read and humanize people who made it to such revered parts in their craft. And yeah, I was just like, well, I'm not an outlier, but I was definitely trying to do something on that
Yeah.
kind of scale. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, you
Yeah.
follow their story from when they're a kid to when they're adult, and they go through so many struggles and hard work and suffering that it's like, yeah, anyone can do this, but is anyone willing to try? And so it's just such a good inspiration for me to, yeah, read more about some of these high performing, amazing outliers.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one too. Geez, because I wrote down that other one that you just referenced from the other week.
Master.
Uh, yes, as well. I just love hearing about a new book, a new read. Yeah, that sounds like another good one. Love it, love it.
Yeah, yeah, mine were more so, yeah, these were the ones that definitely impacted me right at the perfect age where I needed
Yeah.
just some, I guess the word is confirmation bias, where I
Mhm.
had a belief in my head and these things just helped me be like, yes, like I'm not the only one who's thought this way and wanted to live this way. There's other people living it. Now I'm just gonna trust in someone else's life path that it can
Yeah.
happen for someone else.
Yes, exactly. Oh, I love it. We have great ones on here. We're making a good list.
Yeah, there's so many. I'm excited to hear your next one, Wendy. What do you got for us?
Well, this one's maybe a little bit more of like it's not necessarily a story, but the Indigo Children. Um, when I was around 25, I had a few people in like a spiritual realm of their world refer to me as an indigo child. And I'm like, well, like just in whatever, talking about reads or talking about the way I was when I was younger, whatever. And so I'm like, like, what does that mean? And so like they explained it a little bit, and then they were like, there's a book we recommend you read, and it's called The Indigo Children, and it's sort of references this section of people in this section of time. Um, and then indigo children, if they have children, are crystal, their kids are crystal children. And so I have the indigo children. I read that one and I bought the crystal children book, and it's totally Spencer to a T. So yeah, that sort of the indigo children helped that one it sort of talks about from like a medical point of view. It helps teachers, gives them ideas of maybe how to help indigo children, parents. So it's a little bit more of a clinical read, but it does also break down the concept of indigo children and stuff, and so it stuck with me because it sort of helped explain to me why I maybe felt different.
Mm,
Like why is there this, I because there was this feeling of difference, and not everybody is an old soul, and not everybody, like, all these little things. And so whether or not you were treated differently, or you've been like told, like, geez, there's not a lot of people like you, and you're like, oh, okay, like, when you're younger. So at 25, reading that book and being introduced to the concept of indigo children, that was a really good one, and important to, oh, okay, so it's not just sort of me, and there's this, we're out here in the world paving the way, and okay, we do have sort of differences in our personalities or traits. So yeah, that one's a little bit more of a clinical one, but because it really helped me feel uh, a little bit more understood, and a little less different. Like, oh, okay, this might be what some of this is. That's why it made the importance list for me. Yeah,
Amazing. Yeah, I guess there is that feeling when you're just connected to like emotions and the
yeah,
universe and trying to see the deeper meaning in it all and just not being very surface level. There is that feeling where you're the odd one out in a crowd where a lot of people do want the instant gratification and to just be a
mm,
part of the pop culture and just follow all the useless nonsense because a lot of people just want to be a part of a group, be a part of a
yeah,
community, and a lot of us fall into like just the herd group, just whatever's popular on Netflix. I'm gonna watch that
yeah,
too, so I can have this to talk about with everyone, and you're just kind of
yeah,
part of that never-ending mush of nonsense. And
yeah,
when you're someone
yeah.
who's like more so looking for more than just that surface level stuff, then you're just kind of sometimes you find yourself like, where are my people? And then maybe you found that more so when you read the Indigo Children.
Yeah, and even a little bit of, like, when you were younger too. So when it talked a bit about the aspect of kids, and maybe here's some thoughts from parents, it was like, oh yeah, okay, maybe that was there when I was a kid, and you're seeing a little bit more now. And so yeah, it was good. That was an important one for me. Yeah,
Amazing. And last but not least, I've got mine here.
yeah,
It's called The Wisdom of Yoga, A Seeker's Guide to Extraordinary Living by Stephen Cope. And
okay,
this was a long read, but one of my yoga teachers was like, if you're going to read any book, this is the one you need to read. And funny enough, I always kind of get the same message from all these books. So this was a guy who was an author and he was given X amount of time to go write this book about yoga. So he went to this person's, I guess, what would you call it? Like land where you could go and basically live with him. And there was this group of six of them there, and they all kind of practice yoga and meditation every day
mhm,
and whatever. They're just really slow. This was a place you'd go where you just go to slow down your life. And the one person's story I just remember super out of that book was it was this 50 something year old lawyer who had been go, go, go his entire life, could never hold a relationship, just basically lived for his career. He was very, very successful when it came to his career, but that's all he had. And he was getting into his 50s. He didn't never had a partner, never really did much other than have his law career, and he was very, very good and accomplished. But he was getting that feeling that there was should have been more to life than just his law career. So a bunch of like lost people kind of found their way to this compound where there
okay,
was this guy writing this yoga book. And so he wrote on six different people's lives where he spent so much time with them. They practiced yoga every day. They would meditate together every day and hang out and this and that. There's one lady who just could had such a complaining attitude. And so her goal was they told her, if you're going to complain about something, don't speak and just go, see how long you go without. She was like, I went like 2 weeks without speaking because everything I wanted to say was a complaint. But she kind of retrained her mind to to never complain again because she realized everything that was coming out of her mouth was a complaint. And they were all there to like fix themselves. They all, I guess, identified something that was wrong with them, and they went really looking for answers. And so he documented six people's journeys. There was four others, but the one I remember most was the complaining lady who wasn't allowed to speak. So they understood she wasn't allowed to speak, and she just sat in silence with everyone, and it was just accepted, because they knew what journey she was on. But the 50-year-old lawyer guy is always the guy that is just who I just opposite of what I want to be. It's not a bad life, but it's like the person that only cared about chasing the next dollar and never
Mm.
cared about living his own life. And he was 50. He was like, I never got a wife, I never got a kid, I never experienced much. And he was like full of regret. And so it was just another like confirmation bias to like, yeah, you could be that person that just chases career and money. And then you can be like, well, when I'm 55, that's when I'm gonna take my retirement and then start living. And it's just like confirmation bias for me where I was like, well, I don't want to wait till I'm 55 where I might not even see 55 and then be like, well, this is when I'm gonna start living. I'm just gonna live now. Everyone suffers, everyone struggles. I'm gonna have my own suffers and struggles, but I'm just gonna make it work, living my dream now, trying my best to accomplish what I want to accomplish now instead of like, I could have went into a high paying job and just chased the next buck and then had $1 million by 30, like being on an
Yeah.
oil field or something. But
Yeah.
that just, it's not me. And
Yeah.
so just that was another book where it just gave me that confirmation bias where it's like that path for so many people has led to misery, where it's like
Mhm.
I like taking examples and lessons from other people. And so the path of just trying to make a ton of money, but then
Mm.
who is it there to, if you chase that so hard, who's going to be there to enjoy any of that with you? Not a lot of
Mm.
people and not a lot of true meaningful connections. Maybe people that want to use you at that point, but
Yeah.
not many people that are there for you. And so that was another one where I was still young and I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like reading Barbarian Days and Outliers, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna stick to my path of whatever road I'm going down. I'm just gonna trust in my destiny. And at the end of the day, like I'm someone, I always have a plan B. I have a college certification. I can always go and seek employment and, pay
Mm.
my bills. That's once you've done it once, you realize it's not that hard to just make ends meet and pay your bills. But I just felt like,
Mm.
for me at least, there was a little more to me than that. I just wanted to just, maybe
Yeah.
some you don't make ends meet, but you're working towards your true purpose and passion. And
Yeah.
one day when it's all said and done and I'm on my deathbed, I don't think let's say any of my projects failed, even if my cross Canada run didn't get any notoriety and all I did was do it for myself. I don't think I would sit on my deathbed and be like, I regret running across Canada because I only raised $500 for cancer research. Like, I don't think I'm gonna be on my deathbed saying that. So
Right.
that
Yeah.
those uh,
The little bird on your shoulder when it asks
absolutely.
you if today is the day, obviously, you're feeling the vibe of you're living and working at being who you want to be. Yeah. Well, that
Yeah.
is another great one. Geez, love it.
But that's not to say I just feel like a lot of us, like, we all need a career and to work. And I do
Mm.
have my own work and career in my own realm. But some people love their jobs. And I just feel like, you know, we all have to work, and I understand that. And the way going on this independent route, I don't like, I'm not trying to belittle careers and jobs and
Yeah.
employment. It just felt like I could do much more than being basically limited by limited by a manager and limited by I'm only allowed to
Yes.
be there 8 hours a day. There's just
Yeah.
a lot of limitations for me personally in that kind of realm. And for some people, they love their career, they love their job, they love going to work. And there's
Mm.
absolutely nothing wrong with that because that person might get some vacations every year. They have a beautiful home, they have pets, they have a family. They're living the dream. So the dream is going to look different for everybody. And this is
Yep.
just what my dream looks like.
Yeah, and you're keeping to it, right? You're keeping true to it. You like you being aware of the fact that you know that there's more, something more. It's not necessarily my vibe to do that, right? Is like a huge step ahead, right? And you're following it. So that is awesome. I love it. That's the thing. Books, right? Books. There's so many. I'm sure that the list could go on. Like I said, any of the Mitch album ones. The Shack almost made the list. I love that one. The Greatest Miracle in the World is another one I think everybody on the planet should read. Um, but yeah, those are some good ones. I love that. And hearing why. That was a very good idea for the topic this week. I love it.
Yeah, it's just helps us see like what we're reading that's kind of shaped the way we live because
Yeah.
we all it's hard to actually know what book to pick up and to know if it's
Mm.
going to have like a profound meaning. Um, that's why I find it's good to like pick up a book of someone who's doing something you're interested in, and then you might read their story and be like, I actually think so much alike like this person. Why? And
Yeah.
then you just might be inspired.
And that's fun, totally. And that's what's great about having like knowing what a passion is or an idea is. One of the things that I love the most about the Tuesdays with Maury for me is the fact that I picked it up in a gas station. Like
Mhm.
I didn't go to the self-help section or the fitness section. I was bored at work and had read all of the magazines already. The floor was clean. I was done. What am I going to do? I still got 4 hours left. Well, what are these books here? Well, what is this? And you just pick it up and start. And so it was just that different wild find. That's another thing that I love about, how you can connect to something is the randomness of it all. And that is a little bit of that. I love the you book and I love you, Maury, in the story because the whole universe conspired to help me find you. Yeah.
Absolutely. It put it right in your hands that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just funny how the universe is just such a funny, interesting thing. A book about, learning more on just human nature and the
Yeah.
experience in this universe. And then the universe goes and sends it to you.
You bet.
Such a, I'm
Yeah. So
never,
everybody tell us about your books too, everybody. Like if there's in here or on the Facebook page, if there's some that have like really hit your feels and what they mean to you, I'm sure we both would love to hear what those are. Let's get a reading list going. Yay.
yeah, seriously. I'd love to hear some of the very impactful books on your guys' lives. I know like someone might have like the Bible, which is fair,
Yeah.
but I've never read too much into the Bible. Funny story, side tangent. I used to be Pastor Jax. I don't know if I'm allowed to call myself that. But every Thursday it was spirituality day at the care home. And during COVID, we weren't allowed to have any of the church preachers come in anymore. And so
Okay.
I wanted to keep up with their spirituality. So I had the podium. I brought it up to my floor and I had a microphone and I gave everyone a hymn book and I picked some of my favorite passages from the Bible. So every Thursday afternoon we would sing hymns and read the Bible. And yeah, I put on quite the service.
Are there pictures of this?
Probably, but not that I have.
Oh Lord. That's beautiful. That brought just a tiny tear.
I
Yep.
come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear calling in my ear, the Son of God, something like that. but
Aw.
I still remember lots of those hymns.
Geez, I just hope all the care homes out there have whew, people like you and them. My goodness, that's beautiful. I love it, Pastor Pastor Jax. That's another hat you wear. Come on, your
Oh
hat collection
gosh.
must be huge.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I knew in the care home, you're just like, they're so limited that you're just trying to spark something in them. So I just would make a fool of myself, but really just dive into whatever hat I was wearing that day. And it was such a awesome, fun job, fun experience.
Mm,
And yeah, I see myself one day wherever my life takes me, if I need to ever have something a little more stable, I'm for sure my cross Canada run, if nothing ever came from that, like my whole thought going into it, I'm like, no one knows who I am, no one knows I'm doing this. If I raise $200, I'm doing this. I was truthfully like, I'm doing this for Terry, and I'm doing this for my future children, so they could be like, have something, an example to follow. And
yeah.
I was like, you know what? If I go out there and raise $200, as long as Terry's proud of me and I have, make myself proud, I'm good. I was actually going to go sign back up for nursing school as a LPN because I had seen in the care home, you they were getting rid of licensed practical nurses in the hospital and basically just sending them to only work in long-term care because it's a lot easier in a way to be a long-term care nurse. You're doing wound care and medication
Right.
and you're
Okay.
checking on people, but it's a lot different than nursing in a hospital.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's only 2-year program and you get like your salary immediately goes to twice the amount as my position. So I was
Uh,
like, I could stay in the realm of where I enjoy. I can kind of build to a better future. And
mhm.
that was what I was lining up for after my run. But with just all the with what we were able to accomplish, I mean, $100,000 for cancer research and all the people that I got to meet and connect with and,
Yeah.
talk about cancer research and why it's so important. I was like, I'm just gonna continue on this path because my whole thing is service to others and helping others
Yeah.
and doing it my own way. So if I am able to continue doing this and be my own boss and put as many hours into this as possible, then I'm going to do it for as long as possible. And then if I ever do have to go back to school, I'll be like, you know what? I'm so proud that I even tried to make my own path that I'll just be content.
And you did, whether or not you do it for 30 years or not, you did, make your own path. And while you can, that's the thing. Go, everybody go out there and do your thing while you can. Well, yeah, so I think it'd be great to hear people's books, even if it is a kid's book, like you said Dr. Seuss and it was funny, but oh, the places you'll go. Come
Hmm.
on. Come on. Like there's a board book that we have of Spencer's about lighthouse. And whenever we like do a room sweep or whatever, and I'm like, okay, do you still read these? Do we need to like give some of these away or whatever? Both of us are never, we're like, no, the board book stays. That one stays. It doesn't matter. It's all about lighthouses and it teaches the kids about how, the light guides the way, right? Just little things. So it doesn't matter what the book is. You guys put it in the Facebook group or comment on here. I love it. I can't wait to see what some big hits are for people. I love